Okay, okay, okay. We're back. We're back. We're back, and we're ready to attack best sports heroes of all time. Hold on.
There it is.
There it is.
Mm.
And this is something that we actually had to discuss a bunch before we recorded, because there's obvious like athletes that a lot of people would just, of all time that come up. So to make it more unique for this, it's the best sports hero to you in your lifetime, which meant something to you. So it might not be on that general Rushmore of the world, the Alis, the Jordans, the obvious ones, but it is what meant something to you personally in your life going through. If that makes any sense. Am I clear on that? Does that make sense?
Crystal.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody's going to have Michael Jordan on their list. I mean, I think we all know that. But like Theo said, there's some people that kind of may spark a memory that meant something to you that doesn't necessarily mean something to the grand scheme of sports world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That changed
yeah.
your world. That changed your world. It's a Rushmore to you in your world.
These Rushmores are always about inspiring you. So it's like whatever your Rushmore is your Rushmore, you know?
Yeah. So I mean, to me, I got to go back into, because it kind of changes some stuff in my mind, because we jumped right on. And I think that for me, I just want to get it out of the way, because I know we even just said, but growing up in the way I grew up, and again, I'm an 80s kid. We were kids who were on our bikes playing basketball, playing wiffle ball, just playing every sport all day. I played football my whole life, like all this stuff. My thing is, there was the whole culture of the 80s was built around Jordan. So I'm going to get it out of the way and go first, because the 7-foot jammer, like we would play that. Plus we were playing basketball. We were lowering the rim. And especially with the dunk contest and the gold chain, like we all wanted, obviously we can do an entire show of how Jordan changed pop culture and sports in general. But I think for us, it was like, I would like rather kill him. I'm trying to hit the side of the rim. You're doing all this stuff with the 7-foot jammer. He like literally changed my life in the way he changed, I think, any of our lives who were 80s, early 90s, style wise, just the attitude, the whole bit. So I think just for me on a personal level, I'm going to get that out of the way for everyone and just say that Jordan, especially of our era, I think just changed everything. So I know he's on everybody's Rushmore regardless, but maybe not. Maybe not kids who were born in the late 90s or early 2000s. Maybe they didn't have the ability to see him play every night on television, or watching all the highlights or the dunk contest or the cereal commercial or the Gatorade commercial, everything that came with it. So yeah, you got to put Jordan on. I have to.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll get any arguments with anyone on that one. And the great thing about MJ is, like we said, this is a personal show and you want to personalize it. Like, I remember being a little kid and my older cousin who used to dominate me on the basketball court. Every time he took a shot from the outside, he would yell, "Jordan, Jordan." And like he just became synonymous with basketball. You know what I mean? Like he still is to this day. And like you said, man, there are some kids that, the younger generation might have the LeBron versus Jordan or the LeBron versus or the Jordan versus Kobe debates and things like that. But if you got a chance to experience it and you actually watched all those NBA finals, man, it was like something else. So everyone wants to be like Mike.
I mean, yeah, Mike is Mike is the GOAT to me. He's my GOAT, and I think he's a lot of people's GOAT. I mean, not only did he do it off the court, obviously did it on the court. But think about this, man. Mike is undefeated in championships. I'm talking about 6-0 in the finals, two stints in the Olympics, and a national championship in North Carolina. Like, I think that record is the best of all time when you consider, like, college athletics, Olympics, and pro. Like, he never lost. He never lost
from his high school team.
Yeah, he never lost, though. Never lost in a championship series. Never.
It's unbelievable. Like, it's unbelievable to think about. And then it's more unbelievable again, all that. Like, forget the stats, forget the defensive player of the year, like how great he was in every aspect of the game. It's the cultural impact that he, like the swagger with the cultural impact, like what he,
Remember
yeah,
the chain. Remember he used to wear the chain in the playground.
yeah.
Come on, man. Oh.
And it's like, we were talking about this. I'm listening to that Rick Rubin book right now, and it's like, about like not conforming in any type of art, and sports could be sometimes mixed with art. It's like Jordan didn't conform at all to any of the rules that were put before him, in the way he played the game, in the way he played his life, in the way he was moving, the way he was dressed, and the way he looked. And it was like that non-conforming changed everything. It just changed. He was, I think there's pre-MJ and post-MJ in basketball. And to be honest, in sports in general. So just to save you, so you guys still have 4, I'll take the hit on the greatest of all time. So Tommy, what do you got? What are you starting off with?
So I'm going to go with baseball, and I'm going to go with a guy who completely dominated the game when I was a kid and changed a lot for us Boston Red Sox fans who were very dormant without a championship for 86 long years or whatever it was. And that's Pedro Martinez, man.
Wow.
To me, Pedro Martinez, when he was on the mound, it was destination programming. I remember being a 15, 16-year-old kid and not missing a Pedro start. You did not want to miss it because anything could happen. He could strike out 17 Yankees on any given night and just do electric things with the baseball. And the coolest part about Pedro is this is all coming out of a 5'11", 170-pound frame, and he was dominating baseball right smack dab in the middle of the steroid era when guys who, you had second baseman hitting 40 home runs.
Grady Anderson hit 49.
And it was just a crazy time. So to dominate the hitters the way Pedro did with that small, slender frame in the middle of the steroid era, that was unbelievable. I remember watching him in the 99 All-Star game in the height of the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire bomb race where they're just smashing home runs. And Pedro struck out the side that year. And it was just like, yeah, you guys don't understand this.
And he was
that was a great time for baseball, man. Baseball needs that energy back. Like, I love baseball. And there's something missing, though, in the last, 10 years, 10 to 12 years, maybe even 15. But that whole run, especially like the 80s and that whole run in the late 90s up to the early 2000s was magnificent. But yeah, Pedro, man, straight heat, bro. Straight heat.
I know what you said about, and I talk about this sometimes with why kids, because I have I have 6 and 8 year old boys, this, they're big sports, whatever, but why are they not into players of, teams? And it came down to one thing. I mean, it's very simple. Players don't stay on teams. You knew in the 80s and 90s, and obviously everything before it, you usually stayed on a team. That was kind of the thing. For me, I remember being young, and I'm talking real young, when Herschel Walker left the Cowboys, I was like, what? Where's he? What do you mean he's not a Cowboy anymore? He was a Cowboy. He was the Cowboys, right? And then he goes to Minnesota. And again, I think, I was fortunate. Jeter was a Yankee, forever as a Yankee fan. Jordan's a Bull, right? And everybody says, oh, the Wizards. So yeah, I know, but that was I'm talking, you don't leave in the prime and you keep moving. So it makes it harder for young kids to have that, what you said about Pedro. Pedro's a Red Sox. Ortiz is a Red Sox. These are Red Sox. And that
actually helped the rivalries too. Then you had true rivalries because, you'd see that those same players go at it the following year, the year after that, or, obviously the Lakers versus Celtics, the Red Sox.
Bird the Celtic, right?
I mean, man. I think we're missing that. Not only in pro sports, but also in college sports too, because a lot of the younger guys are coming out so early, which I don't have a problem with. I think it's a good thing if you're good enough to make it to the league at a young age, go get your money, you know what I mean, and go help your family. But at the same time, we lose that rivalry in college sports, and as well as pro too.
And I think everybody will always argue in this and that because they make it about money. But I'll tell you when I knew things were different. And again, I'm not putting this person on my Rushmore. I was a giant Don Mattingly fan when I was young, right? So a Yankee fan, and I just loved anybody with the Yankees, like from Bucky Dent on, like I was a crazy Yankee fan.
And those were the lean years for the Yankees.
Super lean. Poor Mattingly, right? He leaves, they win the championship, right? And this guy was literally Donnie Baseball. But the point is, I was just so excited to watch the Yankees, right? I'll never forget, I was a little older now. My nephew was playing baseball, and A-Rod at the time was, on the Yankees or whatever, and we were watching a game. It was like a Sunday, and he said he better get a hit. He makes like $300 million. And he was a kid. He was a young kid. And I had a moment where I thought, I don't think I ever knew how much a player made. I didn't know how much money Don Mattingly made. I didn't know how much money Michael Jordan made. I didn't know how much money any Magic Johnson, like Bird, Julius. I didn't know. I just knew I loved them. And now here's this young kid, obviously 10 or younger, knew that this guy made $300 million and said he better get a hit because he makes this much money. And I went, in my head, I'm like, oh, sports is dead. I was like, there's this. They've put the financial number on this. And I never thought about that ever in my life until until I started reading the newspaper or something,
Yeah.
So it's crazy to think like how you can now kids know that stuff and they're like kind of corrupted about it. So again, not saying that, certain generations are the best, but I think there was an innocence when you rooted for sports that when Pedro, like you're saying those years with Pedro, he was so tough, like when he would hit people and like the way, just like the fights and the whole, like it's just it was more passion behind it.
Yeah, and I think players were characters a little more. Pedro was fun. He was exciting. He would do crazy shit in the dugout between innings just to make his teammates laugh and make them feel loose. And I think that's kind of missing. And really, again, I know you guys aren't Red Sox fans, but like it was tough to be a Red Sox fan, man. We're talking like 8+ decades of nothing.
Yeah.
And then Pedro comes around and they rattle off a few championships. Granted, he wasn't on every one of those rosters, but he got the ball rolling in that right direction. So Pedro's my guy, man. Number 45.
All right, D, what do you got? Who are you starting it off?
I got to go back to Boston, man. I got, probably the greatest, maybe the greatest underdog story. Tom Brady, man. Drafted 6th round, from Michigan. And, look, I think it says it all when Julian Edelman asked him, he's like, I think it was before, one of his last seasons in New England. He asked him, he said, what are we training for this year? He went to go train with Brady. He's like, you going for Montana? He's like, I'm going for Jordan. And that's when he got his, got his 6th ring. Then, additionally, you get his 7th ring in Tampa Bay. But man, look, the guy's, I think he's arguably the greatest quarterback in history.
Yeah.
What's left to really be said about Brady?
Nothing.
Such a goat.
But like, when someone's so good, again, we were saying this about music the other day. It's like, all right, you hear Hypnotized by Biggie and you're like, oh, everybody knows this song. Oh, it's just you're like, yeah, it's also like one of the greatest tracks ever made, right? In hip hop, but you kind of take it for granted. I think Brady, like for me on the outside, watching him play, he's going to win and he's going to win. And that's why when the Giants it was like, so strange because you just expect him to always win.
Yeah.
So it kind of becomes like Jordan, kind of becomes like someone I'll talk about in a minute, where it's like you just expect them to always win. They're so great that you don't even think about them losing.
Yeah. And again, it's like, Brady didn't, he wasn't a running quarterback at all. He couldn't scramble. He had a decent arm, accuracy. Really on the slants and the flats, he was really big. He had a pretty good arm, but like it wasn't like he wasn't highly touted. Like he was, pretty much against all odds, man. He overcame all that and like ended up being the face of New England and pretty much dominating football for the last 20 years.
And then people say, oh, it was the coaching, and then he goes to Tampa Bay and wins.
Yeah, the crazy thing about Brady is you're talking about a guy who wasn't even a starter in college, really like just started a little bit towards his senior year. But, we're talking about a guy who rode the bench and held the clipboard, those first few years. And then I remember being, I'm a Patriots fan. I'm from New England. And I remember even as a fan, those first couple years saying like, all right, this is a wonderful story, but the shoe's going to drop eventually. We're talking about a guy who was a backup in college. Like this can't continue on. And Brady just continued to make believers out of everybody. And like you said, not the most physically gifted athlete, no crazy numbers at the combine for him, but just a winner. There's something I think in a lot of sports, but more in football than any other sport, particularly with the quarterback who's kind of designated as the leader. There is a kind of an intangible leadership quality that when you line up and you see this guy lining up with you, he makes everyone on the team feel a little bit better about winning and a little more confident. So I think Brady just had if this were Madden, like the intangible rating is off the fucking charts.
Leadership.
So yeah, I love Brady. And one more quick thing about Brady, when you look at the championships, man, I mean, Pat Mahomes is an amazing quarterback, right? We all love Pat Mahomes. Yeah. And he's got 2 Super Bowls, which is damn impressive. Crazy. And this guy would have to win 5 more to tie Brady.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? You got to win 5 more Super Bowls to tie the guy? That's fucking crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Him and Moss was special, man.
Oh my God.
I love watching those
just throwing fly patterns up in the air.
That's the thing with Brady too.
Is that fantasy. That was a fantasy monster year for Brady.
Monster year. But that's the thing with Brady too, is that he elevated his receivers too. I mean, Wes Welker got cut in Miami before he went to Boston.
He was a bum with the Dolphins.
Yeah, man. And the next thing you know, I mean, Edelman was a backup quarterback originally, so it's like, I think he instilled a lot of confidence in his players, man. And I think, that skill set, being able to empower individuals that you're going to war with is irreplaceable.
It's like Jordan. It's like we were saying with Jordan. I mean, you look at Jordan's teammates and anybody will say that because, like, for example, like I'm a runner, right? I run every day. I know when you run with people faster than you, you're faster. It's just the way it is, right? You don't want to run with people slower than you. That's for everything in life, right? You want to go with people in business and in sports and in life who push you. And I think when people wind up on that team with Brady, people who go to New England are like, who went to New England. And then you're seeing him as the leader. You're like, I'm going to be the best version of myself. You're going to get the best version of that player because same with Jordan when he was, you're going to get, Steve Kerr is going to be at his best, Cartwright, Ron Harper, they're going to have their best because
Luke Longley.
Luke Longley, everybody, Tony Kukoc, these guys became superstars because of the rub of Jordan. Anybody who played with Brady became a superstar because of the rub of Brady. And that's true greatness in a team sport. So taking it from team to a solo, but not really solo. So someone who completely changed my life as a young kid, growing up in New York City and I think you all know who it is, and again, I'm not saying he's the greatest. I'm saying that as a cultural impact and from where I was from and the way it came is Mike Tyson changed my life, as a figure in sports, because I had personally never seen anything like that. Like I knew boxing, I knew Ali, and I knew Sugar Ray Leonard. My birth father used to watch Leonard, Hearns, the Kings, Roberto Duran, everybody. But then when Tyson came on, it was almost like the world stopped. He's got a cut towel. He's got little black shoes on. He's coming
to ring.
He looks like he's carved out of granite. And
no robe,
no nothing. And his look, and you're like the way he would stare at people, and you're like, and then just massacre. Like you'd go stay up late and the fight would be over in 30 seconds. Then we get into the pop culture aspect of it, the Mike Tyson's Punch Out, like everything, because I was a giant Mike Tyson Punch Out fan. So it's like this is all happening as a young kid, right as Jordan's happening, right as a lot of these greats are around. And again, he becomes almost like I think they did cartoons with him and stuff. Like it just cereal boxes and this and kind of took over. And it changed everything for me. I couldn't think of anybody I wanted to be more than Tyson at the time. Like I was like, this guy is, and again, he was from Brooklyn. We were from Brooklyn. It was just like, it changed everything.
And I don't think boxing has, I mean, when Tyson had a fight, it was an event.
It was a world event.
There'd be 30 motherfuckers in an apartment with a little 20-inch screen TV watching Tyson.
Couldn't believe it. Don't miss it.
Greatest thing in the world, right?
Yeah, and don't go to the bathroom.
Don't go to the
Yeah.
bathroom. Don't miss it. And then he started coming out to like Time for Some Action and like he started coming out like it was like, and again, a lot changed when Customato and Kevin, like when those guys left, everything kind of changed. But he was my high school through college, like he was always around. And then, when I was in college, he lost to Evander, and it was just. And then again, you and I, you produced and I starred in a movie that we had him in. It was kind of surreal, like being with him. I spoiler alert, I killed him in the movie, but it was kind of like surreal to be
Mike,
around
man.
him.
It's Mike.
It's
dude.
Mike.
It's Mike.
And he's so cool, and he's
Great
so
person.
high.
We talk about longevity a lot on this show, and that kind of seems to be one of the kind of defining characteristics that'll land you on a Rushmore. And think about all the different acts that Mike Tyson has had. He's Mike Tyson the fighter. Mike Tyson's obviously had his troubles. He's bounced back from his troubles. But beyond that, he's had this whole reinvention of his career with this new persona where, like you said, he's got his own weed business. He's kind of he's been in all these movies now. He's really had a nice second act in life. And of course, for the wrestling fans, what he did at WrestleMania, I believe in 98, back in 1998. I mean, he put that whole company kind of in the front in the big race there between them and WWE and WCW. So this is the kind of guy who, we use the word rub. There's a big Mike Tyson rub. If you have Mike Tyson as part of whatever you're doing, there's going to get more eyes on it. And I also love Tyson because, for the youngsters out there that weren't around when Mike Tyson fought, I feel like any kid can watch a highlight video of the greatest hits of Mike Tyson's knockouts from those first 30 fights or so, and you will instantly become a believer if you haven't seen him. Like those highlights are just unbelievable. Some of the greatest knockouts of all time. To me, those are still fun to watch when I see them online.
Yeah. Mike Tyson's Punch Out, like you said, Theo, man, that's definitely on the Rushmore video games, man. I played that game. So, I mean, so many late nights.
Nintendo, like I don't love the arcade version.
No, we're talking Nintendo. Yes, Nintendo, NES, bro.
For sure, Rushmore of that.
You know what I mean?
Oh my god. Yeah.
So many late nights.
I forget. Kid was your fighter, and
Little Mac,
Bull, and you're fighting these. What was it? Super Macho Man, and then
Super Macho Man.
Hours, bro, hours, and again, you become. I think with Mike, it was like, again, there's a specific moment in time. Is he one of the greatest boxers? Is he in people's top 10 in the actual art of boxing? Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot. There's some amazing boxers, Rocky Marciano, right? Floyd Mayweather and Muhammad Ali, and obviously people who are probably, but when you're talking about changing the world, stopping the sport, and you becoming now the one who takes it over, I just don't see anybody who's ever done that in the way he's done it.
Entertainment factor. I don't think there's anyone even close. Like I said, his fights were all events. Like the boxing matches now, the numbers don't even compare, man.
No,
I mean, it's just not even close to, So I'm with you, man. Tyson.
And there's a lot more people on the planet now than there was then. So it's like, and again, a lot more access. And that's what I always say, it's kind of like the thing with movie tickets, right? Like where people like, this movie made $1 billion. And I'm like, right, that's because the ticket's 4 times the price. And it's like, and there's way more theaters. It's like, talk about a movie in 1980 something that was on 700 screens and the ticket cost $4. That's a whole different. So I think that Mike was, again, a moment in time. So, I got to go with Tyson as my number 2. Tommy, what do you got?
All right. So number 2 for me, a lot of people might not even consider this guy an athlete, but the former Mr. Olympia, the Austrian Oak, Arnold Schwarzenegger is on my list.
I like that.
He's an athlete for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, man. I mean, listen, let's put it this way.
I like that.
Anybody who's ever stepped foot in a gym, anybody who's ever picked up a dumbbell, at one time looked at a picture of Arnold and said, whoa, what is that? I want to be like that. You know what I mean? So for me, I've always been into lifting weights and bodybuilding and all that. And just Arnold was the guy, man. I remember popping in pumping iron for the first time. I actually got it like online. I had to get it on eBay and it was kind of expensive. It was like a $40 VHS tape, which at the time was a little pricey for a tape. And just watching that movie, I was just hooked. And I was like, I want to lift weights all day, every day. and I feel like I'm one of millions of guys that and women that kind of have that same feeling when they see Arnold. So Arnold's so inspirational. And when you look at where the fitness world is today in comparison to where it was in the 70s and late 60s when Arnold was training, what a boom, man. I mean, there is such a fitness boom right now. And I really think you could put it all on the burly shoulders of Arnold for like how mainstream fitness has become such a thing.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't remember the Arnold Schwarzenegger encyclopedia, the big encyclopedia book where it had his whole workout routine, what he ate, the eggs in the morning. Like, yeah, man, I used to follow that to a T, man. It was definitely a foundation point for me when I first started lifting weights. And yeah, man, I mean,
it's
Arnold's
so true, but it's like everybody we're speaking about. It's like pre-Arnold, post-Arnold, right? Like there was Joe Weider and stuff before it, but it's like when you look at the actual fitness game, and obviously we went through the Jane Fonda of the 80s, you know, with all that, like in the really like big, like kind of workout phase. But in bodybuilding, it's like Arnold's he's the one, right? He's literally, he's more than the Rushmore. He's the Voltron. He's the head, like he's the top. And it's like, I think that's what we're talking about with a lot of these people inadvertently is like, there's no one else. Yeah. We have Lee Haney's and what is it? Robbie Robinson and a lot of those guys that I used to follow when I was young. Obviously Lou.
Real quick, Robbie Robinson looks great, by the way.
He's still doing it. He's still doing it, right?
Greek God, man. Talk about genetics. Like, he's like 75, 74. And he looks like a Greek god still. Go check his Instagram page.
Franco Colombo, I used to love those guys. Franco Colombo, and then I've become friends with Lou over the years. Lou and I have become Ferrigno because I see him all the time at Comic-Cons and we've flown around together and stuff. And Lou is just like, I love Lou as a human being, but like he's still Lou Ferrigno. He looks amazing, and he's I don't know. Lou's got to be in his 70s, right?
Robbie Robinson's 77 years old, and yeah, I think here's the thing, guys. Too, like I think Arnold has his impact on every other sport too, because you don't think that every little kid football player and little kid baseball player was like looking at those pictures saying, "Oh man, I gotta like lift some weights and get bigger." Because that's the thing, man. People don't realize that like in the 70s. Lifting weights and training really wasn't as much of the professional athletes' regular routine.
Baseball players never did that.
They lifted 6 packs of beer. You know what I mean?
Like cigarettes. Keith Hernandez smoking cigarettes. John Taylor was smoking cigarettes when he played with the Niners, and Bill and what's his name from the Celtics, Robert Parrish and stuff would smoke cigarettes during the game and stuff. I mean, totally. Again, you're right, Tommy. It's like nobody. He kind of set that trend of like, wait a second, you can look like that. I mean, obviously nobody could look like Arnold, but it was like they tried. That's crazy. It's true. He probably changed all sports.
Yep. Everybody started lifting weights, man.
He's got a great documentary on Netflix. I don't know if you guys saw it yet, but it's really good.
I love it, man. I've seen it twice actually because I'm such a mark. I'm such an Arnold.
I love Arnold, man. Like, and especially when you transition it over to the movies and stuff like
Conan.
that.
Come on,
Conan the Barbarian.
Conan. I mean everything else, but Conan for me as a kid was
same here, man. I've seen it hundreds of times. Like.
They just came out with an action figure of the old Conan when he's at the end, sitting on the thing at the end with the sword. Did you see that action figure?
Conan the Conqueror.
Yeah, the Destroyer, right? Is it the Destroyer?
Well, no, the Destroyer was the sequel, which was.
What's the one that it's Barbarian that ends with him as the old guy at the end?
Yeah, right? It's supposed to be Conan the Conqueror where he takes over. So it was the Barbarian, the Destroyer, and then the Conqueror where he takes his rightful, place on the throne.
That figure's crazy. That figure is,
I love that movie, man. Thulsa Doom, James Earl Jones. Like it's so powerful, man. But
all right, what do you got at your third? What do you got? Your second. This is your second.
Yeah, second, right? Second. Yeah. I guess my pick would be probably, to me, the GOAT of all sports. I think, I really didn't understand the profound impact that he had on society as a whole until I got older, but never really watched any of his fights, because he, I think he retired in 81, and that's Muhammad Ali. Like, what more can you say, man?
Changed life, changed the world.
Changed life for a lot of people, and major inspiration for all athletes, right? kind of like the Arnold thing, as far as what he attributed to sports and everything. So I got to go with Muhammad Ali, man.
It's like when people say, my buddy used to say all the time, my buddy Stretch, he always said it, always stuck in my head. He said, don't talk about it, be about it. Don't talk about it, be about it. And like, that's like the ultimate, don't talk about it, be about it. But he would talk about it in a way that made you entertained, but you talk about being about it. Like, that's a person who said, take my life. What are you going to do? Take everything.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this. That's unfathomable in today's world where money has become so, they took everything, and it's like, and still to be the best with all those odds against you and to do that.
Yeah. And you can see his impact in today's athletes too, like Conor McGregor or even Ric Flair, man. Ric Flair, back in the day, a lot of his stuff was, from superstar Billy Graham, which was from Muhammad Ali. And he'll tell you himself, like he got a lot of his, his persona from that. So, yeah.
Didn't he fight Antonio Inoki too in a match?
He did. It's
wrestling
considered
connection
to be one of the more disappointing mixed bag type competitions of wrestling, but he did put on a match and it made some money. The two things to me about Ali that you got to look at is lost the majority of his prime years to not being able to fight, due to his draft, not being involved in Vietnam, like prime years, who knows what those years could have looked like had he been fighting. I think he was 28 to the ages 28 to 32 or something like that, which is like kind of right when you want to be competing in any sport you're a part of. And I think, D, like you said, he kind of invented talking shit. He kind of did.
And backed it up.
Yeah, and backed it up. But like, a lot of guys would make comments about their opponents, before a fight or before a match. That's never, that's been around since the beginning of time. But as far as doing it with such an artfulness to where it could become like, Sports Center wasn't a thing, but sound bites that could live on forever. I mean, everybody knows float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Like everybody knows that. So many great little, limericks that he came up with that live on today and are very inspiring.
He could talk asses into the building, man. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like he understands the entertainment component and how to, sell tickets, man. And what do they call him, the Louisville Lip,
The Louisville Lip.
Yeah.
And
while we're on it,
came off him. I mean, Rocky came from him. Like everything comes from him in the world of boxing. Do you know what I mean? In the world of combat sports, like everything kind of comes from him.
Yeah,
in one way or another.
Agreed. He's the genesis. And
if
while we're at it,
handsome and fight, you're doing something right.
Yeah. While we're at it, Tommy, we got to plug your documentary. You did a Muhammad Ali documentary, right?
I did. I made a movie called My Father Muhammad Ali, and it was such a great process, man. Because already being a great fight fan, but being able to really dive into his history and learn a lot about him as a family man, and some of the stories that you don't hear too much. Just an incredible life, an incredible character.
Yeah, he's from my hometown, Louisville, man. So it's
oh, that's cool.
He really put Louisville on the map. So Muhammad Ali, man, who you got? Theo?
Unbelievable. Yeah, and I mean, if you ever just to like you go down, if you ever want to go down any type of rabbit hole in life, like that's the one to go down. All the documentaries on him, all the videos, all the YouTube stuff of him talking, all this stuff, just how you talk about cultural impact. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And again, same with me. I always knew of him. I remember when Mike Tyson, said he wanted to knock out Riddick Bowe because, Riddick had beat him up or whatever at the end. It was Riddick? No, who beat him up? Larry Holmes. When he wanted to beat up Larry Holmes because Larry Holmes basically retired Ali. And Tyson did not take kindly to that because Ali was his idol. And it was like, you just kind of look at, so it wasn't until later in life where I started to like understand the world where I found him. And it was like being rediscovered. It was like I couldn't get away from it. And my buddy's company, Roots of Fight, does such a good job with all his stuff.
But for the record, Larry was crying while he was beating on his idol. He did not want to take that fight. He really was. I know. Beating on him in the 8th round.
He hated it. I know.
And I think the perfect word for me with Muhammad Ali would be I adore Muhammad Ali, man. He was special. And don't forget, he was part of the first WrestleMania. You know,
100%, a
The
big
referee,
part
right?
of that.
Is he the
Yep,
referee?
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Big
You got
part of
and
that.
if you get a chance, go watch the Arsenio Hall clip with Tyson and Sugar Ray Leonard and him. It's amazing at the later in his life where Tyson kind of comes out and they surprise Tyson with Ali. It's an amazing clip to see two people who were talking about on this, the humanization of it. So for my third, I think this is again someone who, as weird as this sounds, that I found later in life before he passed, but again, I don't think I appreciated until I understood. It was really when I started to get into a mindset of like, I'm so attracted to greatness, like true greatness. And what I mean by greatness is not actual being great at something, the passion behind you that makes you great, like the willingness to step outside the lines of conformity. Like you're going to do something not the common way. And I think that when I realized that this person was different was Kobe, right? Kobe Bryant. When like the Mamba mentality, when I started to like explore what that meant and what he was doing and how he was doing it, I wasn't a giant fan of Kobe early at all. Like I knew he was amazing, but I always thought he was kind of like a Jordan ripoff. I was like, oh, he's just playing Jordan, but he's not Jordan. Because again, I'm a Jordan mark from when I'm young. I watched him play. But it wasn't until I started to learn about him and speaking all these languages and like who he was and the way he woke up and the way first to the gym, last to leave, and how competitive he was. It just seemed different. Like in the way Jordan was different and you realize stuff later in life, Kobe had like that and then something more maybe where it was like he wouldn't lose. He wouldn't like he held everyone to task. He wanted everyone to be better and he didn't care what people thought about him. And I thought like, man, that's hard. Like that great. And then like, you know, the stuff later in life, the story that always got me is after he retired, he would go pick up his daughters at school all the time. And he said he had to be first in line. He had to have his car first in line. It became like a competition in himself that he wanted to be the first car in line to pick up his kids. And it was like, they were like, why? He goes, because I had to be. And it was like this, it's so meaningless when you think about it. But for him, everything was that competition. I just love that. I don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm like you, man. I mean, I always thought he was an amazing basketball player, and he's always been on my Rushmore basketball players. But I really fell in love with Kobe more so towards probably hit the later last 6-7 years of his career.
Yeah.
And you really kind of got to see him more as a person, kind of like piggybacking off what you're saying. It's like I love what he did for, you know, what he was doing for women's basketball. You know, and what I love about him most is probably that he's actually a flawed person.
Yeah.
You saw what he went through earlier in his career, and you saw, you know, his full arc.
Yeah.
You know, because no one's perfect, right? And
it's controversial, you know, there's always that controversy. And I think that, you know, unfortunately, it's like, you know, I don't know. I've never met Kobe. I don't know his story. I don't know anything about it. I just know from what I've seen, right? And that's what I always say about people. I don't know. I don't know what he could be doing. I don't know his life. I just know from the information I'm given, right? That's the only way I can make my assumption is on the information I'm given. I don't know what's right or what's wrong or what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
So,
but to see him come back from all that, because that's what life is about. Like you get knocked down so many times, and you know you're at a certain point in your life, and everybody wants to chop you at the knees, and it's like, I mean, it's just amazing, man, what his whole story is. I think he has the best story in sports as far as like where he came from, what he went through, who he became, and you know, obviously the tragic death is just, you know,
crazy.
horrifying. But yeah, man, I love Kobe, man, and I've shed quite a few tears, man. Since that happened.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I shed a tear when I watched his documentary. His movie was so emotional, kind of hit me in all the feels. And for me, the you know, I really started following basketball like really heavy in the mid 90s. You know, that's
Mhm.
like kind of when it was
Mhm.
all these, great players and great teams, and Jordan was still in the mix. And I'll never forget that one of the greatest drafts of all time is the 96-97 NBA draft. It was just chock full of amazing talent, some Hall of Famers in there. Kobe's a part of that. And I remember seeing this kind of scrawny 17, 18-year-old kid, Kobe
Yeah.
Bryant, who was originally, I want to say, drafted by the Mavericks, and then there was a draft
Yep.
day
Hornets.
trade, or Hornets. Yeah,
Hornets,
Hornets draft day trade got him to the Lakers. And I remember just being like, who is this guy? Like, I didn't know much about Joe Jelly Bean Bryant. I didn't follow his dad. He played in the 70s. And I remember even like as a kid collecting cards and like following the stats on the back. And I remember seeing like his first couple of years, it's like, who is this guy? Everyone's talking about this Kobe guy. He averaged 5 points a game. Like, what's the big deal about this kid? Why is everyone talking about him so much? And then, 2 seasons later, you look on the back of the card. Now he's dropping 20 a night. And I just, to see that career just explode from literally like probably still seeing a pediatrician on draft day to becoming one of the greatest basketball players of all time is pretty incredible. His, tandem with Shaq, him and Shaq were just such a great team together, although as teams do, they often split. But when things were going good, man, I just loved watching Kobe and Shaq do their thing. So yeah, you can't really say too many bad things about Kobe.
Yeah, he personifies hard work, persistence, and just an impeccable skill set on the court, man. You can say who's your favorite basketball player, LeBron, Jordan, Kobe. I'm sure there's a few others in there, but
Bird
when
Magic.
it comes Bird Magic, obviously. But when it comes to just pure skill set, Jordan to me was the greatest, but Kobe might be the most skilled basketball player of all time.
I'd love to see Kobe and Jordan play one-on-one.
I feel like Kobe could have played another probably 5 years if he really wanted to, too. He knew when to get out. Like you really never saw Kobe's skills diminish. He kind of was doing his thing right up
60
until
his last game, man.
Right.
It's 60 his last game.
Yeah, so pretty
what a
incredible.
way to go out.
Yeah, when you think about it, like he probably could have legged out another 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah.
So many athletes don't know. It's like different with acting, right? You can act until
till you drop dead.
Till you drop dead, literally, because you're just, unless there's like a true like decline, like you can just keep going. And sometimes the best work you're doing is kind of later in your life. Where with athletics, and we see it a lot in fighting and stuff, is that you just keep holding on because you don't know any better. And usually, unfortunately, at the end, it's like a shell of that person, right?
So not pretty. We've seen so many ugly endings to
So
athletes'
many
careers.
Yeah,
knowing when to get out is definitely something that will land you on Rushmores.
It's an art, knowing when to get out.
Yeah,
nobody wants to see Willie Mays play for the Mets. Nobody wants to see it.
No, there were so many that later in their life, and I would say predominantly it's in sports. Really, it's only in sports where you just kind of keep going because, again, you don't know anything else. It's your thing. That's your only thing. Kobe, again, what did he come out and make billions with body armor and, did the Jordan stuff. It's so, again, he's my
got
favorite.
an Oscar too, man.
Got an Oscar too. Great short film. Tommy, what do you got?
All right, number 3. I'm going to go with, in my opinion, the most dominant female athlete of all time, and that's Serena Williams.
Stole it.
Oh, you had Serena there? Man, like here's the thing. I'm not even a tennis fan. I'm really not. But when I would be watching SportsCenter and you'd see Serena, like I would stop and pay close attention to just, I'm a fan of sheer dominance is what I'm a fan of.
Bro.
So like even if you're not a tennis fan, just to look at her numbers and to see the dominance in her win percentage throughout her career. And it was just one of those things where like you knew she was going to win. So, and
not just win, dominate.
Yeah, just crush. And obviously her and her sisters getting it done in the doubles world too was really cool to see. Again, I'm from the wrestling background. So to me, that was just like one of the greatest tag teams of all time there. It made sense. Just made sense to see them gobble up the competition. Marketing, obviously, she had her big Nike thing. And, I'm sure she inspired a lot of women to get out there and say like, professional athleticism for females is a thing. Let's pay attention.
Yeah. And it's in one of those things too, where there's 2 types of dominance. It's like the dominance of like, okay, she might have a 2, 3, 4 year run. but she's been doing this, dominating for like 20 plus years, man. At the highest level. You know what I
The
mean?
highest
So it's
level.
like,
And change the game. Again, someone that changes the game. The game's different, right? Like when you change the game, it's like Brando and acting. It's like you change it and it's altered from there on out. And that's what kind of it felt like. Like it just became more kind of like, and I'm sure we'll talk about someone in golf. It's like you make it more accessible, right? It becomes like, I didn't really care about tennis, but God, I knew who Serena and Venus were, and I knew that they changed things. Kind of like when I was young, how McEnroe, when he was yelling at everybody and doing whatever, but on the sheer talent of domination, he just changed the game. It's crazy.
Changed the game, yeah, for sure. And being a girl dad, she's a great inspiration, and obviously that movie King Richard was, was a winner as well too. So.
Man, competitor.
For my third one, I think you kind of tapped on it, Rossi, is the world of golf, man. In 1996, I believe. I think that's when Tiger really burst onto the scene.
That's right.
Tiger Woods.
Stopped the world.
The world really stopped, man. I mean, not only because of the racial background and everything like that, but it was just like this burst of youth within the golf scene, man.
Yep.
And I just remember I was just so mesmerized by him. And I wasn't even a golf fan at all. I'd never even watched golf, right? But like he drew me closer to it. So I got to go with Tiger Woods, man, for sure.
100%. I mean, I remember the video game Tiger Woods Golf. Like I became like I was playing in college Tiger Woods Golf every day with my friends, and I'm not a golfer. Like I don't care about golf.
Brother, that was a sick game. We should dust that off one day. I would play that right now.
Sick game. And again, it became because of him. He became like, there was Arnold Palmer's that, everybody, I'm not a big golf person, the Shark, Greg Norman and all that, but like
Jack Nicklaus.
Yeah, John Daly was another one who that time during Tiger, I was like, oh, this guy's a rock star, but he's not winning the way Tiger, like, again, Tiger plays, Tiger wins. If he didn't win, something was wrong. That's when you know that that's greatness. Like something had to be wrong if he didn't win. Is he injured? What do you mean he didn't win? Mm-hmm. And I think again, world stoppers, there's so few in this, in what we're talking about.
Yeah, and like you said too, golf is not the kind of sport that a lot of people watch. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are millions of golf fans in the world, but it's not your standard. It's not baseball, basketball, football, hockey. All right, it's one of those.
And talk about if you're talking about the world, like we say soccer, football. It's like the biggest sport in the world.
Sure,
like,
my point is,
play golf is not.
The point I'm trying to make here is that golf became a thing again because of Tiger Woods. You had people who would have no business ever watching golf ever suddenly tuning in, and I'm one of them. Because, the Masters is on. Tiger's going to put his red shirt on a Sunday and kick everyone's ass. Oh, man.
He made it cool. He made golf cool.
That's right.
He made it marketable. Like nobody, like Nike, Adidas, nobody was marketing with golf golfers back then. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, man. Tiger really changed the game. And, I think he still has a little bit left in the tank, man. So we'll see what happens over the next few years. I would love
nothing more, man. And you know what? A guy like Tiger is capable of something like this. But like to come back from those injuries and win a Masters or something like that.
There's always the controversies and this again. When you judge a person, you have to look at them as like not what they do, but what they overcome. Right? In anything in life, it's what you overcome, and it's like. You have people in our world that if anybody does anything wrong, they just want to bury them and put them out of existence. And like, I don't want to hear from it. And if you like them, I don't want to hear from you. And you're terrible too. You're as terrible as them. And we've lacked this like empathy and like forgiveness and like this whole thing of like anything. And we see that time and time again. So I look at people who overcome and, regardless of what people's feelings are on someone, I just thought, imagine the spotlight on that person's life and to overcome and to come back and to still do things at a high level is outrageous. So someone who never, I guess they had a little controversy at one point. I think it was something to do, but maybe with gambling or something, but someone when you talk about just unreachable. Now, I'm not, just like I wasn't a fan of golf, I am not a fan of this sport, but we did used to play in the winter sometimes, hockey, and there was someone whose name overtook everything, and Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, the great one. I mean, the great one, right? The only other person that has that name is Jackie Gleason, and we spoke about him on an episode. It's like the great one. I don't know much about stats. I know that he had 92 goals in a season, and the closest ever was like 60 after that. Like, he still to this day, he holds like every record, like the Art Ross trophies, the assists, the total goals in career. And these are like almost like Johnny Vandermeer throwing 2 no-hitters in a row. These are untouchable numbers because of the way the game's played. It's like Cy Young with wins in baseball. No one's beating Wayne Gretzky's records because the game's not played like that anymore. I think when you look at golf, I mean, when you look at hockey, he's the person still to this day.
No question.
All the years later, it's Wayne Gretzky.
You want to hear a mind-blowing statistic about Wayne Gretzky? You could remove every one of his goals that he scored, and he would still be the all-time leading points guy in the NHL.
Wow.
Just based off of his assists. Like, are you kidding me?
That's incredible.
Gretzky's a monster.
Wow.
When you look statistics-wise, he's a true monster.
Yeah.
No one will touch him. And again, he's got that household name, won championships, because that's another thing, right? We often talk about that. There are so many athletes that could be on these lists. If you don't win a championship, it is hard to put you on these lists, you know. And
I feel the same.
He got that box checked off. So I think Gretzky's a phenomenal pick. Any team he went to, he created excitement. I even remember liking his St. Louis Blues run. Remember that? He played for the Blues for a couple of years.
When he went to the Kings, it was like world changing again. You think about like news coverage and world changing and
the LA market.
Yeah, and
he got him to the cup. They didn't win, but he did take them to the cup.
You know, I think it's why it's so impressive of like, you know, what Messi's doing and, you know, Ronaldo and like certain athletes today. It's like, you're not just dealing with the actual sport, the actual going to play every day. You're dealing with the spotlight all day, every day, that if you do one thing even off, if Jordan had one bad night, if Mike Tyson gets beat once, you know, by Buster Douglas, if this, like, it's over. Then they just start, it's over. It's all been this and it's all been that. With Gretzky and these guys, when he moved to LA, when he went to LA, it was like, oh, he's gonna everything's terrible. He's the worst. It's just Tiger, all this stuff that when you add that on top of the game, that so many, it's so hard to be great at. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Social media age, you know,
it's just unbelievable. The pressure of like, you know, the be careful what you wish for thing that comes with it is fascinating. All right.
I'm so torn on this fourth one, man. This really is a tough game. There's two that are kind of sticking out in my mind. I'm just going to go out with it. Shaquille O'Neal. He's on my Mount Rushmore.
It's a good pick. It's a great pick.
The word Shaq, you can just say Shaq and everyone knows what we're talking about. And to this day, he's entertaining me on a regular basis because anytime I watch an NBA game and I see Shaq and I see Charles Barkley cutting it up together, he's still entertaining me after all these years. I think he's one of those guys that you could put in a lineup and show him to random people at the supermarket, say, who's this person right here? And the old lady at the counter is going to say, oh, that's Shaq. Like, they know who Shaq is. Dominant ball player. I mean, yeah, like a lot of athletes, he had some interesting years towards the end. I think he was even a Celtic for a minute. But, you know, when he had it going on, that first Orlando Magic run, you know, he put that team on the map. I think every little kid suddenly was paying attention to the Orlando Magic, and half the people didn't even realize Orlando had a team prior to Shaq being there. And then the run with the Lakers was just poetry. So I love Shaq. I think he's done a lot for pop culture. And you got to listen to his music if you haven't. You know, put that.
Oh man, he has an amazing song with Fushnikins. And he's got an amazing song with the RZA, No Hooks.
Shazam. Remember the movie Shazam? I think it was
Wu-Tang.
Shazam. Yeah.
So Shaq's on my man. Straight up '90s pop culture fun. Makes me feel like a kid again.
Yep.
Yeah. I gotta follow suit on this with you right there as far as Laker. I got to go with, and this is tough for me, but I got to include both these gentlemen in here because it's like, to me, they came together as a package, and that's Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. They changed the face of basketball. They changed I mean, the whole story is just dynamic from college
into
the rivalry, NBA. I mean, it bled over to like everyday life for everybody because it was always the top water cooler talk. You had the Celtics fans, you had the Lakers fans. It was just, I don't know, man. What a time to be alive. I was maybe like 8,
even
7,
Dusty
8,
and Rick had their rivalry, right, Demetrius? Wasn't like Dusty
Dusty
a Celtics fan and Rick was a Lakers fan?
Rick was a Laker fan. Yeah. So it's yeah, man. Magic and Bird. I mean, with the NBA today, without them two Magic and Bird, like we don't have the NBA what it is today. So
I was up late one night.
Dominated the MVP.
I was up late one night looking up their Converse sneakers. You know, the black
weapons, the Converse weapons.
And
I got a black Barbados pair.
Oh yeah,
nice. That's awesome.
I had the Magics when I was young, and I remember buying them at Herman's. It was a sports store in Staten Island Mall, and like it had the big sign of them too, like the cardboard cutout of them back to back. Like, and they had their sneakers in each hand, and I remember just thinking, like, this is as cool as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are so polar opposites, but they had such a respect for each other on the court and off the court, where it's like anything they're into, like they're pretty much tangled together for the rest of history.
Yeah,
like no matter what, you know. So
Jordan said yesterday, Magic's the best point guard to ever live. He loves Steph Curry. But Magic is like, he just can't.
Yeah, Jordan wrote some crazy 5 a.m. text to Stephen A. Smith, poetically written. It was like an essay. It was literally like an English teacher wrote an essay. It was
don't say this. Yeah,
even his text messages are the greatest of all time.
Yeah. No, I gotta agree with him, man. So I mean, I love Steph. Don't get me wrong, but it's like
no.
I mean, Magic did so much off the court, man. I mean, he's like the first sports entrepreneur, man, that became a businessman. I mean, he won a championship with the Dodgers, by the way, as a Dodger owner. Now he's an owner of the Washington Commanders now. So, or I think is that official, right? The Washington Commanders deal.
I didn't hear about that. That's cool, though.
Yeah, I think he's an owner, I believe. So, yeah, man.
What
Magic
nickname, man. The nickname, like Magic? Kidding me?
Yeah, Bird was so cold, man. Go look at some Bird's old highlights, man, like one of his reels.
Or go look at the YouTube videos of people talking about playing against Bird, how cold he was, the things he used to say to them and stuff.
Yeah. He'll tell you
right somebody to tell a cold story quick before we go is like somebody, I forget who was saying it. They did an interview the other day and they said Jordan, Chris Webber, I think said it. Mm-hmm. Jordan came in the locker room. It was pregame. He had a cigar and he walked in and he said, "Who's covering me?" And it was whatever. And he pointed and he goes, 55 tonight. And he left and he dropped like 56 that night.
Cooked.
I saw that. The guys were like, "He's coming in our locker room?"
And he had a cigar in his mouth.
He pulls in with the Ferrari. He pulls in a Ferrari. So about mind games. Hey, that's one thing we left out. All these guys and females, right? The one main thing they have in common, obviously, other than willpower, is just mind games, the mental capacity of mental jousting with their opponent. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like at a high level, like
before you start.
Yeah, that's what Magic said. He's like, I used to look every night and see what Bird's box scores were. That was what drove me every night. I need to be better than him. And Bird is doing the same thing with Magic, you know? So it's like, yeah, man, what a great rivalry.
Best sports heroes.
Nice names on this list, guys. I like this list a lot.
This is a good one. Listen, best sports heroes. This can go on forever because there's so many that whatever, and everybody's gonna have their own. But I think it's like the best sports heroes to you, and ultimately, I think that everybody could relate. So, reverse Rushmore will be interesting on this one. There it is, best sports heroes all time. Do you think?
Guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to go over to our Patreon. Check it out. We've got a lot of nice, fun, exclusive features on there. We got some setup videos, some behind the scenes. So go check us out on Patreon.
Yeah,
check it out. Like, comment.
Yeah.
The trifecta.
Subscribe. Yeah, subscribe, like, and share. Do all that. And check out all our shorts that are being put on there, behind the scenes stuff. All right?